Happy Monday! I get such a feeling of joy every time it's like Happy Monday. I feel like if you approach the week just with a sense of joy and just a sense of just, you know, this is a new opportunity. And that's exactly what we like to do here on this show, is just provide you with a new opportunity and a new maybe way of thinking. And you hear from so many inspirational people on the show. We have another one today. It just gives you a new mindset and allows you to go about your week just with that new mindset and knowing that anything is possible and that if you have a dream and you have a goal, you can accomplish it. This week especially, it's Easter week, and whether you're religious or not, that's my advice for this week. I always start out with some advice for a better life. And that is just to take some time this week. Try to find some peace. Maybe just take a step back. We're over 100 days into 2019, which is mind-blowing in itself to think how far we are, because if you're like me, it felt like just yesterday we were ringing in the new year, but we're 100 days in. And I know with some of our schedules that are so busy, it's hard to take some time away. But I'll just give that advice of just find 5 minutes, 10 minutes this week, an hour, and just take a step back. Be thankful. Be appreciative for where you are in your life. Be appreciative for the people who are around you in life, helping you achieve the things that you do every single week. Just take some time. That's your advice for a better life this week. Today's guest, I'm so excited to talk with him. He is one of the kings of Hallmark, but he does so much more. He is also coming out with his first studio album in 15 years that is coming up here in about a month. He also has a children's book. So much to talk about. I know the Hardys are definitely tuning into this because that is where he shines as Dr. Carson Shepard on When Calls the Heart. Please welcome to studio. How you doing?
Great. That was quite the intro. I like that.
Well, you know, we're always just about, you know, injecting some positivity. You look around the world. I'm sure you look around the world and, you know, it's just people want to be negative sometimes. And you just have to like force and be like, no, there's a lot going on. That's great.
Absolutely. We're in the outrage culture where people just love to vent and there's so much division and divisiveness. And that's why I really feel like our show, When Calls the Heart, is such a hit, and why the Hallmark Channel is a refuge for people to go, because it's like a safe place where you know you can experience really great storytelling, but without some of the divisive drama.
Exactly. That's honestly, for me, I'm a huge Hallmark Christmas movie fan.
Are you really?
So like, it's a huge thing. It's weird. I live in a house with a couple other guys, and like we all watch around Christmas time because it's like you're able to check out.
Yeah.
You're able to like, oh my goodness, there's so much craziness going on in the world right now. There's so much both in the world, both in our lives, that we're, you know, trying to get ahead in business or doing whatever, working too much. And it's like, all right, let me take a couple hours and just flip this on.
That's right.
And just...
Yes, and decompress a little bit, or escape. It's like a utopian escape. And where the news media, like you were saying, can be a bit dystopian.
Yeah. I want to congratulate you. I mean, this just came out over the weekend, season 7.
Yes.
Which, I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, in today's media, there's so many options. There's so many, like Hulu, there's Netflix, and our show does air on Netflix, but there's so many options for people to watch, and our show and our audience just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's incredible. It's like a phenomenon. So to get another season out of this incredible storytelling is I feel really honored. I came out on season 4.
Yeah.
So I've been along for a few seasons here, but there's folks that have been going the whole 7 years.
Well, and you guys have a record to beat too, because the season premiere for 6 was the highest rated premiere in Hallmark's history.
That's right.
For a show. So I mean, the pressure's on. I feel like for 7.
Is it? I mean, we're a quarter. We had 250,000 more viewers on the premiere of the first episode of season 6 than we did of the first episode of season 5. So that's just like a little bit of a gauge to see it's growing like 250,000 per episode. And it's, and the fans, the Hardys, hello Hardys, you guys are, you know how much you're loved, and you've heard about them already.
Oh, absolutely.
They're incredibly organized, and they're not your average, like the age is from like, you know, kids all the way up to like, I've sent messages and actually did FaceTimes with a couple Hardys grandmothers who was pushing late 90s, and sometimes when they're like, will you send me a headshot or will you send me something, I'm like, I don't really have time to go and like sign 100 things and go to the post office, but I will FaceTime your grandmother, get her on the phone. Oh
my goodness.
And I've done that so many times for fans, and I'll do anything for them. They're the reason we have a great show.
Absolutely, and yeah, you're right. The Hardy. I mean, they have conventions. I know here at AfterBuzz, James Lott Jr., who I know is a friend of yours, and then Marissa Serafini, like they've gone to Hardy's conventions up in Vancouver.
Yes.
And it's wild.
Yes, and they cut it off at 500, but they could easily do several thousand. It could be like a Comic-Con for the fans of When Calls a Heart, and they're beautiful people. My mom is a huge fan of the show, a huge Hardy, and I don't know if you knew this, but the woman who wrote the books knew my grandmother and my grandfather in like 1918, 1920 when they met. And when I first met Jeanette Oakes, who wrote the books, she knew my grandmother by name. And so there was all these serendipities that has me on this show. As it's like I said, it's an honor to be on a show that's sending a message and making a positive difference in a conversation that's like, it's a community, right, in Hope Valley.
Yep.
And so it reminds, almost like nostalgic of how people used to treat each other.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
It's refreshing, yes.
And it's just a refreshing way of life, too, for people who don't know. I mean, this takes place in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole different way of life. I mean, you're not carrying around a cell phone. You don't have a laptop. And it's just so, like, laid back.
Yes.
And you don't have all those modern things that can... they can be distractions almost sometimes.
Oh, terrible. So you look in the background of one of our shots and there's the extras, the background performers. And it's so refreshing to see them like actually standing there and talking. No one's hunched over their phone. Like no one's like, like now in a movie, if you see background performers, there's the only realistic thing would be kids or adults or everybody just doing this. Like
on Instagram, you're on Twitter,
So it's stunning to look at a shot on a film that's a period piece from 1915, 1916, and look, and there's no one on their phones. It's like people are talking, or they're looking at the trees, or the sunset, or something, or playing. It's refreshing.
Is that what I was gonna say? Is it refreshing too when you're on set, because everyone almost is in that mindset of like you almost forget that you have a cell phone sometimes?
No, we don't forget because we're doing stories, we're doing like lives, but I would say that does cross over. And very rarely do you see someone just like hunched. It's a beautiful set to be on, and we're family, so we actually talk to each other. Well,
and your character is, you said you started in season 4, but your character is certainly getting more role and more in terms of the plot. I mean, Carson and Faith, talk about what's going on with that this season. I know it's more developing, and I'm sure it's going to continue as the season goes on.
Yes, and it was just starting to heat up, and then the show took a creative hiatus while they regathering the direction, and we're coming back on May 5th, and I believe, I mean, I'm not sure if it's this next episode that's coming May 5th or on the 6th, where there's some big movement in my relationship with Faith, Carson's relationship with Faith. And the actress who plays Faith is Andrea Brooks, who also is just, her character on Supergirl is really is moving up as well. So and we share, like, if this is where Supergirl is, this is where Hope Valley is. So fortunately, I mean, and Riverdale's over here, so we got to get Martin Cumming over from Riverdale and Andrea Brooks over from Supergirl. And we have to share them because those.
Wait, is this like Vancouver?
My hands right now are Vancouver.
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm understanding for people watching here.
The greater Vancouver.
The greater Vancouver area. Okay.
Yes, like out in the fields by like Burnaby. There's Hope Valley, and then there's Supergirls, and then Riverdale, and we have to like share everybody between them. Yeah. It's not easy for them to get the schedules to work.
In a relationship in early 1900s is so much different than a relationship today, too. How do you move forward with that on the show? Is that an interesting of like, obviously, especially Hallmark, I mean, it's very family friendly, as you said, where like, you look at any relationship that's on TV right now, it's like, okay, when are they getting into the room, in the bedroom, or whatever? That's not the case.
I know, they're really careful with that. Like, there's a couple scenes that we're like, where we're camping, and we're like, we had to make sure that it's very different. And we're in a work relationship. She's my nurse. So if it goes bad, there's not a lot of nurses like her hanging around. So the stakes are, like, it's not just that the courting phase is, would be a lot longer, and it's also on the Hallmark channel, so there's that extra time taken in courting, and that's the cool part. Really, is there's a lot of beauty in the time it takes to go deep with someone before you, in that day, would propose and then wait till you're married before you
got a whole thing.
There's time taken.
You're making sure you're talking with the parents every step of the way. You're making It's refreshing, though. It is. And I think that's what people love about this show, is that it's so much different, and it reminds you, like we talked to the advice for a better life at the beginning of the show, to take a second, to take a step back, put your phone away. One of the things I love to do here in LA, I go camping, and I go to a place where there's no cell phone service. And it's great, because you don't have that worry the whole time of like, am I missing an email? Am I missing a text message?
I know. That's true. I camp a lot too. Where do you go?
So I go to a place, Hot Springs, like an hour and a half or 2 hours outside of Los Angeles.
The Deep Creek ones? The one where you gotta...
know about this!
Yes, of course.
Oh, it's fantastic!
You hike across the ice water, and then you can camp there if you... Are you allowed to? Not really. Not technically.
What are you talking... What is this?
Well, just on the other side is Lake Arrowhead, where we're looking at a cabin right now.
Oh, beautiful.
In that area, and we've spent some time there. So you can get to Deep Creek one way through Lake Arrowhead, or the other way.
It's right along the Pacific Crest Trail, which goes from Mexico to Canada. That people
and you
do
meet
for like
people
3 months.
walking on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're a couple miles, you're like 2 or 3 miles hiking down into a canyon. Like and you have to drive a ways to get, like it's
not easy to find at night either. Like I tried to hike out with my son once when he was like 7. We got there before sunset. We're hanging in the tubs, and there's like naked people there. My son's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" He was like so young. Usually people are wearing clothes, but I think it's a clothing optional type of a place, or it can be, or it was. I don't even know. But there's these natural pools that are like ice river here, like freezing river, and then a hot spring that's all rocked in. You can like lay here and like put your hand. It's so cool.
The stars.
It's unbelievable. But getting out of there in the middle of the night with the 7-year-olds, there's like, if I go left, we may not be sleeping in a bed. And I'm like, but I think I'm supposed to go right. And there was a moment where I could have gone the wrong way, but we went the right way and made it back.
I heard a would you rather the other day that was, would you rather be filthy rich in 1900 or be lower middle class today?
Wow. I'm going to go 1900 filthy rich. Yeah, absolutely. I really would, because you could then, like, who knows what you could create? You could create railroads, hospitals. Like, if you're talking filthy rich, like Rockefeller rich.
You're talking Rockefeller rich. But I'm not talking, there's no toilets, no running water, no internet. I mean, that's where it gets tough.
Yeah, for sure, I think. I mean, there's a lot, but like you said, lower middle class, there's a lot of options available for everybody. You know, they just launched those Falcon 9 rockets so that this little village in Africa will have satellite internet.
Yep. So, and that's like that's third world. That's why it's like lower middle class. Like you can go out and buy modern technology. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff.
You can have AirPods.
You can have AirPods. Oh my goodness, lifesaver.
How many times have you lost them?
Never. Are you on the AirPod train? I mean, have you lost them?
Nope.
Oh,
well, I know I've lost
the magnetic.
I've lost the little thing.
Oh,
but I've found it in a jacket or something. I'm like, where did I put it? And I was using the corded one for a day or two, and I was like, this is the worst.
Who am I?
Yeah, who am I with these white cords?
We don't look down on everyone else. I promise. We just look up on ourselves.
No, they're so convenient. We're probably blasting our brains with EMFs.
I want to talk. You know, it's not easy, but I want to, for fans obviously are wondering. The show comes back May 5th and 6th. Had that hiatus. You've had 3 episodes come out. There's another 6 coming out on the back end when it comes out May 5th and 6th. How has that been for people on the show with Lori? I mean, did it have to be refilmed? Was there a refilming that had to take place? And what has been the mood on set?
Well, I haven't been on set because they're filming. They're doing some reshoots in Canada, and I mean, everybody has really been very, very careful because it's a very sensitive time.
Absolutely. And
it's very sensitive for every side of this thing. And and there's been a lot of, the Hardys have had to be really patient too, because they were so excited for this season to start. Then there was this big upset in the media, and then it's almost like everybody's trying to collect themselves and pull it all together make a statement that doesn't offend but still supports, that's loving, but also like everyone's like dotting their I's and crossing their T's on the corporate side, and it's like every angle you could look at this has had to been handled very carefully.
Very carefully.
And the mood overall is obviously support and family, but there's definitely there was a time when nobody really knew anything. Like us as actors knew just as much as anybody else.
Everything's breaking on Twitter, so
yeah, and that's the really crazy thing with this outraged culture, is how things break. Is you get several trolls that are trolling and just making these insane comments, and those things go right to the top, and so those opinions get a lot of attention as well. So it's been a time that I really feel and I can really trust that in the long run will really bind everybody together. Like adversity brings family together. It really does.
Are you talking about people on the show or the Hardy's community?
I'm talking about the whole thing, man. Like between the characters and the actors, between like the fans and the relationship and the love they have for the show, and I really feel like everyone's really pulling together now and doing the very best that they can with what they've been given. And still, time will tell. Things are going to continue to unravel, and I think we'll look back on this as a moment that everybody was very generous and was able, especially the Hardys. They've been generous and patiently waiting, like, when is this next episode going to air, and what are we going to do, and like, how do we recollect as a group? And you know, the end of last season with Dan Lissing's character, that was a big thing for the Hardys to overcome. Yeah. So it really does speak to the loyalty of our fans and how our showrunner Alfonso is had to rewrite and had to create these and keep these stories like just really true to the heart of Hope Valley, and that we get to continue to tell stories. You know, it felt like it was almost taken away in a way, like because everything was up in the air, and we're like, wow, like it really. And at the end, we're looking at it with a lot of gratitude that we get a chance to continue to tell these stories.
Did you think there was a chance that it wouldn't come back?
Not deep down, just only when you read the media, right? Like, so it's like it's so inaccurate most of the time. Like, just know that whatever you're reading out there is probably 50% true. Like, unless you met the person and heard them say it to your face, dig deeper, or just you know, because like I said, the growth, and our Christmas movie had 4.75 million people.
Huge, kicked off the season.
So I'm not really doubting. There's a wave of humanity that wants to hear these stories, and our writer Alfonso's a really great writer, and I think these characters have had 7 years to develop and come into the homes of our fans that. I was never worried that it was going to end, but it was just unsure of how it was going to move forward.
And I think, thankfully for the show, again, the Hardys, if anyone's going to be like patient, if this would have happened, like you're talking like Supergirl, you're talking about, or on another show where it's younger fans that are like, no, outcry, everything like that, the Hardys, thankfully, are people who will be patient.
That's really, really true, and take their time.
Yes,
and they're much less of the outrage culture. Like you're right. You're right. The Warner or the WB, what's it called? CW. The CW fans are much younger, and they're so the millennials. There's another generation.
Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y. I'm just adding letters.
Let's just like the outrage that. And here's what's cool about them. And like I'm not slamming them. They also have such a powerful voice, and they're like the spear tip of change.
They're helping making a difference in a lot of areas,
which is really interesting because we have this traditional side that's holding on to tradition, which is really important. And then there's always that cutting edge new spear that's like blasting a way of new change, which is, and they're quite often in opposition to one another.
And it's that blending too of cultures, because everyone needs to work together, because a lot of people in the positions of power are baby boomers and people who are established, and then they're trying to deal with this millennial spirit where it's like, yeah, we want that change too, but there's a right way to go about it sometimes, and you can't just full on charge into things. You have to develop a plan and go through all that. I mean, has the cast reached out to Lori? I mean, have you guys been supportive of her? I mean, I know on social media you guys have said messages. Has there been any messages of support to her or any communication? I mean, for the I mean, I gotta ask because I know the fans are wondering.
It's probably exactly how the fans are imagining. Like we've all known Lori for a really long time, and when someone's your friend and something happens to them, you don't stop being their friend. You support no matter what happens. So that has been there especially from me. I can only speak for myself of how I've reached out or how I've been, but that I can't speak for anybody else around that. All I do know is that if you had a good friend and they were accused of something, you haven't even heard their side yet, you would be there for them no matter what. And so that's the conversation. It's like, and if I everyone's human, if Paul, all of a sudden there was some weird thing and it came out that I was being accused of something and you haven't heard my side yet, and I wasn't supported by my friends, I'd be like, are you really my friend? So of course, but I can only speak for myself on that.
Yeah, that was another piece of motivation that I actually posted on my social media this week. So I want to tease your social media, at Paul Greene Media on Twitter and on Instagram, at Paul Greene Official. And we talked about the show. I mean, you're more active with people there. And even the Hardys, I know they're on Twitter and Instagram nowadays. And you're FaceTiming people. And you're on Facebook as well. But it's find people who are not just going to stand by your side, but are going to move forward and backwards with you. Because a lot of people in this world who are like, oh, I'm going to stand by your side. But then when you get a curveball and you have to take a step back, are they in that same place or are they moving with you?
That's true. I think in those moments you get to know who your real friends are, for sure. For sure. Like, how do you weather the storm of adversity with the people you love? When people go through things that are brutal or really challenging, that's when you really get to know who your friends are.
Yeah, and that's, that's all about what this show is too, is like handling adversity. And I know we're going to talk a lot about your career, and like you gave me a set of 630 auditions that you've had said no, that people have said no to you, and like, so life is all about handling adversity. If you think that you're going to go through life and not face adversity, I mean, good luck.
Yeah, you're dead. I mean, you're not really alive unless you're facing challenges and adversity. And yes, 660 auditions in LA, and 630 times they said, no, you're
not you.
Not you. So 30 times I've had a yes in this business. And one of those was a year or 60 episodes on Wicked Games with Tatum O'Neal. Like, that was one of my first jobs. And from that came a wedding thing I did with David E. Kelly through that. But then there was a year on Bitten, and now there's been 4 years on When Calls a Heart. And inside of all that, there's like NCISs and CSIs and like guest stars, and they all add up. And it's like, but you really only need one. I mean, you get one yes, and it's Game of Thrones, and you're that little character, not Cersei, but the young one with the needle. What's the,
I'm not on the Game of Thrones train. I should be, but I feel like at this point I'm like too far. I'm gonna watch it when everything gets done, so that way it's like, oh, okay, I'm on that second wave. I feel like if I start watching now, I'm gonna be in season 2.5 when the new one comes out, and everyone's gonna be like, oh, no, but don't tell me, like, right. So that's the train that I'm on.
You people, diehard fans are so jealous of what you get to experience. I mean, it's insanely violent. Could not be more opposite of When Calls a Heart or Hallmark in any way.
You don't think the fans are fans of both?
I would not imagine. I don't even know why. I mean, I almost never watch horror or violence or gore or any of that. I can't, actually never do. I don't like violence. Like, I don't like watching violence be done. So when Game of Thrones, when it's done, I'm actually closing my eyes. Like, I grew up with no TV. I grew up on a farm.
Yep.
So when I see it, it's like traumatizing to me. And I'm one of those people that like to keep my brain pure. So I'm not watching a bunch of garbage and then thinking my thoughts or my life is going to result differently. Like, I really feel like it's an intake system. So I'm very careful to what I listen to what I watch.
Yep.
And there's definitely scenes when I know something's really about to go down on Game of Thrones where I'm like, I'm not watching that.
Yep.
But then it's such compelling filmmaking. It's like,
so
as a filmmaker
good.
Myself, I'm just so inspired by the acting and
it's so good. Like, I know, it's not like I'm shunning it. Like, I see it and I'm like, okay, I'm just not appreciating it right now.
You'll enjoy it.
I will definitely enjoy it. I mean, What is your mindset when you're being told no over, 630 times? I mean, thankfully you're getting the 30 yeses, but even if you look at that, that's like 4%.
Yeah.
So walking into any audition room and being like, well, there's a 4% chance I get this.
I know, right? I guess you just develop a muscle of not taking it personally, not making it about yourself, and just keep moving forward, like Walt Disney said. Like, that's one of my favorite quotes, is just keep moving forward. And, you know, Madonna was rejected by like 70 record labels or whatever it was, and she's just getting no. Eventually, someone's going to look at you and say, you're just right. And it's just, do you have the resilience to weather the storm, to make it to that little meadow clearing where you can get a little bit of sky and a little bit of sun and go, okay, here's a moment I can be creative, I can create something and make art, and someone's going to actually see the value in it, and then you're in a different place. You're at a different part of the mountain, and then you in the woods for a while, and you don't know where you're at, and there's another meadow, and you get there a few years of work or months, and then you're back in the trees. But in the trees, you're developing these skills and this talent, and you're resolved to, like, you know, like, to be able to take adversity. And along the way, you're developing character that allows you to actually have sympathy and compassion for the characters that you're playing, because you also have gone on a journey. If it was just easy for you, nobody would even want to watch you, because you have no authentic depth. So the adversity that you're talking about, and these no's and these you're not it, along the way create character that when you play other characters, you're able to bring that to them.
I love that. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that, of like you use that adversity to better yourself in the character.
That's right. I've never said that before either. That was in your listening. You created that. We created that together.
We created that together. I mean, that's very true, because you always, again, and getting back to looking at life will always throw you adversity. If you're expecting, you know, a carefree life, then good luck, because adversity will happen, and so you need to grow through it, because if you don't grow through it, you're going to go through it again.
That's right.
And so it's finding that growth, finding why you're going through it. And I think in your case, saying like you grow in the character. You're a better actor now because you were said no to.
Totally, 100%. If it just goes easy, it's like success is sometimes a very dangerous thing, because you become a little bit lazy and a little ungrateful, and you know, and when you're struggling a little bit, you're developing muscle. It's just like going to the gym. Like, if you stay home, it's comfortable, you ain't growing your muscles. If you go to the gym, it sucks, and sometimes it's really painful, but at least you're growing.
That is one of the things too for people. I mean, a lot of people who don't know. I mean, obviously you know this. I mean, take a look at this image. Are you kidding me? But like, how you build muscle is you're actually tearing muscle, and then it rebuilds.
That's right.
For people who you're like, oh, you're getting that. Literally, if that's a metaphor of like how you grow and how you gain muscle and get bigger, is you are tearing muscle.
That's right.
You are destroying muscle, and then it grows back stronger.
It's true. And I think we're in a culture where everyone just wants to be comfortable and look for the easy road. And like, how do I get to it? Feels like the culture we're in now is so like driven by comfort and ease, and like, how do I, that they're afraid to really be uncomfortable. And the only way you grow is when you're uncomfortable. And so, and it's, but I really feel like personally growing myself, I've really learned that. Like, I do cold water showers and go in the ocean.
Oh, you're one of those like ice bath people?
Yep. I brought Wim Hof to LA to like a group, and we got ice. I had this tub, and we filled it with ice, and this was like 7 years ago, before he was like the Iceman.
Yeah.
My friend Rich and I brought him. And so I do the Wim Hof breathing and go in the ocean when it's freezing like right now, or in a cold shower, to purposefully do what's uncomfortable, so my nervous system later in the day, when I have to make hard choices, is like, oh, we've done this, let's choose that. And it seems like an easy choice.
Yeah.
But if we're always looking to be comfortable, we never grow or do anything, or we're just uninteresting.
Absolutely.
Lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. The times that you look at it like that were really hard in your life now make every other thing easy.
Totally. And think of every movie you watch. Do you want to watch your hero in the movie sit back on his couch and watch Netflix? No, you want to watch your hero get beaten down and then fight back like Rocky. And that's you, man. Like, that's you. Do you want your life to be easy, or do you want to be Rocky Balboa? Like,
do you consider are you an optimist, a realist, a pessimist? What do you ever think that of?
I am an optimist.
Okay.
Yes, I barely put a foot in reality. Like, I'm a time optimist. I'm surprised I made it here on time. I'm starting to understand time a little better. But I'm an optimist in everything. When something goes wrong or something says, I always think someone's giving me a compliment too. And I'm like, oh, you meant that as the bad, that's how I have grown up. I was that way as a kid. It's like filled with happiness and sunshine and music and sports. And I just, I've had my share of adversity. I've lost people I love very dearly, including my father, and of course all my grandparents are gone, and my mentor passed this year, Larry Ethier, and along the way have experienced my share of adversity, and in those moments you definitely have a choice to focus on everything that's wrong or missing, or focus on what's still beautiful and still right there. And so I am one of those people that have a bit of a filter, like a rose-colored filter, where I choose to look at all the things that are there, not what's missing.
If you search for the light, you're going to find the light. If you search for the darkness, you're going to find the darkness.
That's right.
How did your childhood and where you grew up influence your acting and your life? Because you had a very interesting childhood. I mean, people see you on TV now. You didn't have a TV growing up.
I know. I don't even know how. So I don't know if you've heard the story, but when I was 13 or 14, my friend had a TV, and he showed me Bloodsport, which is a Jean-Claude Van Damme martial arts movie.
Great movie.
And Purple Rain on the same weekend. And my parents couldn't know because I was raised so religious. I was like, if they knew I was watching Purple Rain. Oof. So I got home, and I was so inspired by Jean-Claude Van Damme that I started doing 1,000 crunches at night, stopped eating sugar, put myself in martial arts. And the day I turned 16, I got this little Honda Civic, and I drove up to Daryl Mork's acting studio in Edmonton, which was about 45 minutes away, because every morning I was waking up on set in my dreams. Not like, I wasn't like fighting, but I was like, they'd yell cut, and I'd be looking at Jean-Claude, and I was on like the set of Bloodsport, like stretching and like, okay, we're getting ready, and then I'd wake up when they would yell cut. So I had this dream as a 16-year-old, but no acting. Like in school, I didn't act because the artsy people, the actors, the theater people were also the cigarette smokers and the headbangers, and I was the athlete. So I was like, I want to go do theater, but I can't be seen with them. So I would sneak into my theater classes. Like I wouldn't go hang. So it was and then church theater and or like plays in church. But the beginnings was a dream. Of reoccurring dream of fighting alongside Jean-Claude Van Damme in movies. I just knew I had to do it. And then what really catapulted me was I got a scholarship to university to play volleyball. I'm a volleyball player still. I play beach with my son here in tournaments. And Kelly Strite, a modeling agent, found me in Calgary dancing on a speaker with my shirt off at 19 years old, or 18 years old. And he was one of the best agents in the world. Found Tricia Helfer, who was on Battlestar Galactica, and he really got me out of Alberta to Toronto and Paris and Milan and London and Tokyo and Athens, and just lived everywhere, and ended up in New York City, where I started studying acting with Stella Adler, Uta Hagen, Susan Batson, all the biggies there. Knowing I would eventually get to LA, but fortunately there was commercials for me to do in New York and modeling, which I was doing. And then when my son was born, I watched 9/11 physically happen and ran from the buildings myself 2 years before my son was born. And there was all these signs to leave New York, like the East Coast power went down, and my son was 6 days old, and we had to walk up 37 flights to our top of our building where our apartment was, or where our condo was. And then the third strike, so trade centers, watching them fall was one. The power outage was two, and then I got my son, and he's like 2 weeks old. A big truck splashed us with water, and I was like mud water. I'm holding my son. I was like, "That's it. We're selling our place. Done. We're going to LA." And I was 30. I've been trying to come to LA for years and years and years, but pilot season was always campaign season, and I always had jobs lined up. I had a very, very rarely successful modeling career. And so I would always have these clients, the biggest clients in the world, having time on me, so I could never go to LA for pilot season.
And it's big money too. I mean, it's big money.
It was big money.
It's great companies. Like, it's hard to say no.
It is. So I left at the top of my career, of my first career, and came to LA with a 6-month-old, having 0 acting credits, and at 30 started a brand new career at 30. That 630 no's started at 30
That's
years old.
when it started.
Yeah, so it's been 14 years I've been here in LA, and it's like, it's a journey, man. It's a lot of rejection and getting beat down and wondering if you're delusional. Like, if the phone doesn't ring for 4 months or a year, you're like, am I crazy? Like, am I trying to act? Like, am I an actor then if I'm not working? And those things start going through your head, so...
Well, I'm sure it's especially hard, too, because it's not like you came from nothing to start this. You came from something big, took a major step down, and are starting to climb. And somewhere along maybe this journey, if you stumble, you're like, can I just go back up? Like, was that ever a thought to go back to New York? Or how many times was that a thought?
Right, right. Well, fortunately, when I came to LA, the commercial business here was so much bigger, like 100 to 1 to New York. So I was, I joined SAG in 1994, and when I came here, the commercials overtook the modeling income. So which was amazing. I was like, I can work for one day on a commercial and keep getting paid. Whereas modeling, you get paid for that unless it's like a campaign where they renew it every year. But yeah, it was quite the thing to come out here and give that up. And I still dabbled in it my first couple years here, but then my agent's like, are you here or are you in Germany? Like, are you here in LA? So I was like, I have to stop cold turkey. And I did at 32 and just dove in, threw all my chips in. It was like, we can do this. And I knew that dream from 16 years old on a farm, or 15. And
was that dream all there, like in your 20s when you were doing the modeling? I mean, was that dream still like gnawing at you?
Gnawing at me. It's like, it was like I was doing a desk job that I was, even though it was fantastic, great money, got to travel, meet cool people, learn music, learn to fly airplanes. I got my pilot's license super young. I was also like a monk. Like, I was celibate monk from 19 to my wedding night at 24. As I started modeling, I like found Jesus and had this, all I was doing was reading my Bible, playing guitar, and investing my money. Like, I read The Richest Man in Babylon at 20 years old or 19, and I was like, oh, 10% of my money goes to God, and which my dad had taught me anyway. And I had been doing since my first job. And then 10% I was like, is mine to keep, and I can live off of 80%. Yeah. And so I had these great teachers and mentors, and I wasn't busy with drugs and sex and women and partying. I was learning guitar, learning the traditions of the mythology in the Bible, buying real estate, and I bought an airplane at 21. And used it to fly myself to jobs along the East Coast. And I had this but I really feel like in that way, God played the biggest role in my life. There was this moment at 19, I could have gone into sex, drugs, modeling, living in Paris and Milan and New York. But instead, it's like I was so taken care of, and I had all of that sexual energy got channeled into creativity and knowledge and depth. And I had like 5 mentors that were men in their like 50s that taught me, no, this is where you invest, and this is it. It was so cool.
Yeah, and its impact, I mean, it laid the foundation.
That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. How, I mean, I'm trying to think back, because you said at 13, is when you saw the TV at your friend's house.
Yeah.
How much, I mean, how small of a town were you?
3,000 is one that's nearer, and then 10,000 is Wetaskiwin. And the guy was just out on the farm, because I grew up on an acreage farm. Yeah. So a few thousand.
I grew up in a town of 1,200. in
wow.
Wisconsin. So
Okay, you got me beat.
Farming community. So like we were on the outskirts of town. We were on the outskirts of the city that was 1,200. But yeah, we were in the country.
Right.
And I look at that as being a huge blessing.
Yeah.
Of you're able to go. I don't know how often you go back home, but you go, and it shows you that there's so much more to life, and the joy is not found in the material things. That it's found in the relationships that you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And the joy is also found in the journey of those struggles.
Mm-hmm.
They bring a lot of joy. We would be miserable if everything worked out the way you wanted it all the time. Miserable.
Yep. And the times, I mean, speaking as a man of faith, it's like you are, there are times when you look at something and you're like, why is this happening? I'm going down the wrong path. I want to go this way. And the Lord is like, no, trust me. And then it like becomes apparent and you're like, well, now I know. No,
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you get in to, I mean, music, and you got a children's book, and I really want to talk about your music because you got first album coming out in 15 years, coming out in May. Congratulations on that. Thank you. How did that kind of take a role in your life?
I met a girl named Jenny Coates at the time at 18 who was a model, and she was super beautiful, and I was not in any way living my life that how I had grown up to be. Mm-hmm. And she was this Christian, and she bought me a Bible, and she bought me a guitar, and she single-handedly changed that course of my life. And so I took my guitar everywhere with me, and then I started just writing like crazy. Like I was a writing machine in 18, 19, 20, and then I just kind of, for some reason, and recording a lot too, and then when I came to LA, I wasn't writing as much, or I was still playing, but I was learning covers. And then in Joshua Tree at a retreat, we met this awesome guy, Sam Babai, and my girlfriend Kate said that I would love him, and he's an incredible producer, and he's responsible for a lot of like pulling the band together. And then we have a show at the Hotel Cafe May 8th here in LA.
Oh, fantastic.
You should come if you're in town. And it's the launch day of the new album as well that I'm launching on my website, paulgreene.com. And so it's just, I've always loved music, man. Like it moves me. Nothing moves me like music. It moves me more than acting does. And
we're here in about like 3 or 4 minutes. We're gonna have you play a song. So yeah, stick around. Everyone who's watching, obviously, you're gonna stick around. You're here.
I'm out of here, man.
I don't think it's. I think you can have loves like that you're not forgetting about them, but you, like when you said in your late 20s and your early 30s, you really focus on acting. You really focus on other things. That it's like that's not bad to put these other things because it's music. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
And now you're able to come back to that.
Yes.
And so I think that is for people who are like, why did you give it up then? Well, it was never given up.
Yeah.
It was just like maybe back burner while I'm putting my full energy into this.
That's true.
Now I'm able to do something here.
I got more to say now too. I'm in a different point of view.
Yeah.
My story allowed me to have something to share.
Well, music, especially writing. I mean, you write about your experiences.
That's right.
How does being a father impact you professionally, whether it's music or whether it's, working in Vancouver and whatever gigs you take? How does that impact you?
Do you have kids?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
So it would be easier to say, how does it not impact you? Because from the moment that little guy was born in New York, we were born in New York City, Oliver is my son's name, he completely just changed, especially my relationship with God, because looking at him, all I had was love for him. And I grew up a little bit afraid of God. And I'm like, wait, why am I afraid of God? Like, if God is not even human, and God's not going to, like, destroy me if I make a little mistake, because I'm certainly not going to destroy my son, and I'm human. So it started to shift my movement from fear to love in my relationship with God directly through my son.
Wow.
So it really changed everything. And I had a really amazing father. My dad, who passed of ALS 5 years ago now, he was just incredible. So so Oliver, my dad, and my coach who passed this last year, Larry Ethier, who was my mentor, gave me, and Kathy, gave me these incredible nuggets of being a parent. And I've put them together in a book.
That's your book, the 52 Ways to Be a Dad That You Wish You Had.
Yeah, 52 Ways to Be the Dad You Wish You Had. So it's very small, simple to read for dads. Every chapter is like a page and a half.
Right.
And then there's like three little questions at the end of every chapter. And it's a little Ernest Hemingway size field guide for dads that it's like little, if you're struggling to connect with your kids, you can turn it anywhere and there will be like one little like road back to your child that's like, you know, getting into their world or not making them wrong, bringing them to nature. There's just little things that having your kids come up with their own consequences when they make a mistake. It's the best.
How did that go the first time? You're like, so...
Well, it was incredible. Larry Efe, my teacher, turned an entire school in Kenya around with that one rule. He's a principal. Wow. They took him there and said, don't change anything. And he's like, he got there, everyone was being expelled, suspended, and he was like, I have to change this one rule. Every single kid in that high school, and they were expats in Kenya, they were Americans and Canadians. When they made a mistake, he brought them into his office and said, you come up with the consequence and a rule, a reward for you to not do that. Because I know you don't really want to be acting this way, getting expelled and suspended, and the grades were super low. And in 6 months, he turned the school around. And he told me that story when my son was like bullying and having this brutal time in grade 2. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Oliver's like pushed a girl.
Yeah, what do you
like? And he like because his mom and I were going through a really hard time at the time. And Larry said, just take him aside and ask him like what he thinks he should come up with so that he doesn't do that again. And it was like just gave him so much responsibility. So that's like one of the tips of the 52. And obviously it lines up with one per week because there's 52 weeks in a year. And it's a legacy I want to leave behind is a little handbook that keeps families connected.
And I love that of it. You're right. It's so little because it tells parents that it's simple. It doesn't need to be some grandiose thing.
Yeah.
You're reading a page and a half.
That's right.
It's something simple that you can put into practice, and it'll just make a massive change.
Yeah.
You talked about legacy, and I always end with 2 questions before we hear your song. A, what is success to you?
Success is well, there's a couple things that come to mind because Jim Rohn says it's a worthy achievement of a set goal, right? So I'm a big fan of writing goals down like in the future and unfolding them backwards. So success is like almost like an achievement of an ideal, like, and doing that in a way where there's integrity involved. So there's that realm of success, right? Where you say, I'm going to do that, and you end up doing that, and you feel successful because you did you achieved the mark and the goal that you set. So that's success in that realm. For me, as another side to that is waking up happy. When I wake up and there's a feeling in my body of joy, that's success to me. And so whatever it does to take that, whether it's going to bed at this right time, and like I intermittent fast and I do all kinds of things that have me have a good sleep. But waking up and looking at, my home is a peaceful place. My relationships are complete. I don't have incompletions everywhere. Like I'm not like, oh, I should really call my uncle and like tell him I love him. It's like that feels successful to me when all my relationships are whole and complete, and I wake up feeling joyful. That's success. That like it's what's more important than feeling that joy?
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
And then the final one is in 50 years and 70 years, when people look back on your life and they're watching your movies, they're watching When Calls the Heart, and they say maybe to a friend, they're like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's Paul Greene. And they're like, oh, who is he? And the person says, he was blank. What do you want people to say about your life and your career?
He was, the first word right when you're saying it came to mind was an example of how to live your life as a contribution.
I love that.
That's the first thing that, like, he was, yes, because if you just live your life for yourself, no one's ever going to remember you anyway in the realm of legacy. But if I'm living my life as a contribution and the lessons that I'm learning and the things I'm discovering actually make a difference in other people's lives, that's something that's worth being remembered for. And if any of the albums that I've recorded or will record 50 years from now, someone's listening to it and they're hearing my point of view on a certain subject, say death, and from that, it's a contribution, then my brief, because we're all heading to the grave, man.
Yep.
So my brief time on this planet will, for generations, make some contribution to others that their life can then allow them to make a contribution to others. It was worth living.
Absolutely. I love that attitude. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming on. I'm excited. I've been waiting for this like the whole time for you to be able to play a song that is coming out on your album.
Yes.
Tell us about what song you're going to be playing and maybe how that came to you.
Well, this song came a long time ago, really. 3 minutes. It's very clearly from a point in the Bible when when Jesus has died. I wanted to sing this today because it's Easter week.
It is Easter week.
And it's the moment when the angel looks at Mary, when Mary comes to Jesus' grave and it's empty and she's weeping, and the angel says, "Woman, why are you weeping? The one you are seeking is no longer here." And then so it's like that moment was so cinematic to me. And it's the first track on our album, and it's really transformed over the years into what it is now. Yeah.
Awesome.
Woman, why are you weeping? The one you're seeking, he's no longer here. Tell me, where have you laid him, so I can take him? Yet it feels so near. The stone's been rolled away. The stone's been rolled away. Son, why do you doubt me? Open your eyes and choose to believe. Just put your hands here and look into my eyes. Just place your hands here, you realize the stone's been rolled away. The stone's been rolled away. The stone's been rolled away.
That was great. Wow, that was awesome.
Thanks.
That was fantastic. And again, it's a perfect week for it.
That's
I mean,
right.
that is fantastic. That honestly, it's like any Hallmark show or One Calls the Heart in the movies. It's something that it takes you back. You just sit back and you're just relaxing to listen to and to just experience.
Yeah, and we're releasing. My buddy Laurent shot this really cool video at 4th Street Studios of we were using Jimi Hendrix microphone. And do you need to? Is that 3 minutes left? Are we okay?
You're good, yeah.
Okay. The video is starting on Jimi Hendrix's actual microphone that he used, and it pulls back, and then I did a little interview. So we're releasing that on Good Friday, so week from today. This week, yeah. And then the actual album will be released on paulgreene.com on May 8th.
Wow. Yeah. So May, the beginning of May is big for you. May 8th is that When Calls the Heart comes back on May 5th and 6th.
That's right.
I mean, a lot going on in early May.
That's right. And the book is moving to the final stages, and we're really trying to push for Father's Day, but it's going to probably be Father's Day of 2020 just because publishing takes a bit of time.
Well, you got a lot going on. You got a lot going on. You got a lot of gears turning, so there's no harm in doing that. And again,
that's true.
It just like your music, it will always be there. And so release it when it's your time, when you're ready.
Right.
Congrats again on season 7.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm so excited for that to now, have another chapter in that, and especially for your character, Dr. Shepard, to be able to explore that more as we're doing this season and hopefully more in the next.
Yes. No, I'm excited. That is great news. And I just want to acknowledge you, man, because you have a way of listening that actually brings out the best in, I've shared things that I've never shared, especially in that way that are unique to the questions that you ask and to the way that you listen. You listen in a way that's very generative.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. This show is, I like to think, is different in that it's conversational. It allows us to share stories from people that you see on TV, you see in the movies, you hear their albums or the music, and you think to yourself, oh man, I'd love to be that person. But as the show title is that little voice says, I could never be. And you can. And I'm sure you look at anyone who's coming up and you're like, you could be me.
I would here's a slight spin on that. I would just say they can be them, right?
Yes, yeah.
In the sense that, and that person would be someone who makes. There's nothing like being yourself, right?
You want to be an original, not a copycat.
That's right. So but I understand the vision. You see someone on stage perform, you're like, oh, I could never do that. And I love that that's the premise of that. And the truth is, it's been done so many times that what's really celebrated is originality, and nobody can do what you do just the way you do it.
Yeah. We'll leave everyone with this. Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Church, where I've
been
go
to
and volunteer every Sunday.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, he gave the message this weekend. He's like, you came into this world an original, don't leave a copycat.
Yeah, is that his quote?
He said that this weekend. I don't know, I'm going to attribute it to Rick.
I have the Purpose-Driven Life, there's a little handbook, that book that I like the way that Rick Warren shares.
Yeah, very good.
He's relevant, very relevant.
Absolutely. He relates to people very well and shows love, which is great. So thank you guys. I hope we're showing love to you guys, and I appreciate if you guys would show love back. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend. We're here live every Monday on YouTube, but also available on Apple Podcasts if you want to be able to listen just on your drive. And again, just tell a friend. We give this content to you guys for free. We're here to just bless your lives, bless someone else's life by going out and sharing that positive message. I hope you guys learned something today. I know I certainly did. Just a wonderful encouragement, especially in this Easter week. Again, take some time, whether it's meditate, whether it's just go out in nature and just have some time to reflect on the blessings that you have in your life. They're there, I promise. We'll see you next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.